There are a lot of things that can ruin a relationship. Infidelity, money, in-laws. Apparently getting a little too honest with your friends over a bottle of wine should also be somewhere on that list. Everyone loves to say that honesty is the foundation of a healthy relationship, but nobody really talks about whether there are some things you're better off never knowing.
The drama comes from Christopher Borgli, produced by Ari Aster, released through A24 in April 2026. On paper, it's a dark rom-com. An engaged couple, a week before their wedding, an ordinary night with friends. Then a confession game ends with Emma admitting she once planned a school shooting as a teenager. But how do you love someone once you know the worst thing they almost did? That question didn't stay contained to the film. Tom Mauser, whose son Daniel was killed at Columbine, called the film's use of a school shooting as a plot device awful, accusing it of humanizing killers. Whatever you make of that criticism, this isn't a movie people watched and shrugged off.
During a wine tasting held as part of the final preparations for their ceremony, an awkward discovery becomes the center of conversation. Just 1 week before their wedding, Emma and Charlie have caught the DJ they hired for their reception engaging in heavy illicit drug use. As the four friends sit around the table engaging in what initially seems like a fairly casual debate over the seriousness of this discovery, their banter gradually shifts into a moral interrogation scene. Emma tries to keep the conversation grounded. After all, if they hadn't randomly crossed paths with the DJ on the street that night, there would be no debate at all. What if they simply caught her on the worst day of her life? While Emma is pleading for grace in gray areas, Mike shuts down the idea, reducing it to the fact that they caught her, and that in itself should be enough. His stance foreshadows the group's mentality that a single bad moment is enough to permanently define a person's character. Fed up with Mike's stance of moral superiority, Emma questions why he acts as though he's never done anything wrong. Rachel seizes the opportunity, forcing a moment of Mike's past cruelty into the spotlight. This inspires an impromptu game of confession. One by one, the group is forced to answer one simple question: what's the worst thing you've ever done?
When Mike begins telling his story, his language is carefully constructed to wash his hands of responsibility. As he describes the time that his now ex-girlfriend was attacked by an aggressive dog, he passively claims that he just moved behind her, trying to cover up his act of cowardice as a harmless reflex. Before anyone has the chance to accuse him of anything, he's already trying to minimize his own role in what happened. Rachel sees right through his sanitized recount of the story and cuts him off bluntly, stating the ugly fact that he used her as a shield to protect himself during the attack. Before the table can confront him with the disturbing lack of empathy required to sacrifice a romantic partner to a violent animal, the group quickly moves on, seeing this as nothing more than an amusing story.
As Rachel recounts the time she was invited by a younger neighborhood boy to explore an abandoned RV in the woods, she explains unconcernedly the moment she suddenly slammed the door shut as the boy was standing in a closet and locked him inside before running away. By reducing the discussion to Rachel's failure to simply open the door, Charlie gives her an easy way to explain it away. The boy started freaking out, and she was just a scared kid. She then drops one of the most disturbing details in passing. A search party was conducted when he couldn't be found. As she begins sensing the horror settling over the table, she immediately blurts out,
"But they found him. They found him. Don't worry. He's alive. He's alive."
It's a classic attempt to soften the confession, continuing the table's recurring habit of immediately explaining away their wrongdoings. She acts as if the fact that the boy survived somehow erases the cruelty of what she did. Because the worst scenario wasn't the outcome, Rachel seems eager to believe that her hands are clean. When Emma presses her on what she would have done if the search party hadn't found him, Rachel insists that she would have eventually spoken up. Whether she genuinely believes this or not, it's the version of events that allows her to preserve the image of herself as someone who would have done the right thing. As Charlie bluntly points out, the reality is that she never actually did speak up, even when she had the chance to when the boy's father came to her desperately searching for answers. At every opportunity that she had to turn the situation around, she chose to prioritize protecting herself. Rachel's refusal to speak didn't only affect the boy. An entire community spent the night fearing the worst. What makes her confession even more disturbing is a detail she almost throws away in passing. She describes the boy as slow. Whether this was just a childhood misunderstanding or an actual developmental disability, the possibility of a special needs child being trapped alone inside a dark, filthy RV in the middle of the woods is unimaginably terrifying. Rachel remembers this situation as a bizarre childhood story, but the boy experienced it very differently. He was so terrified that he never even identified Rachel as the person who locked him inside, which speaks volumes about how traumatic the experience really was.
Once the attention turns to Charlie, he nervously answers that he cyberbullied a classmate so relentlessly that the victim's family eventually moved away. Similarly to Mike and Rachel before him, Charlie begins walking back his confession, insisting that it could have just been a coincidence that the family moved. His instinct is to protect his self-image by softening the story in real time. When Charlie goes on to explain that he repeatedly made the boy cry, Mike rushes in with an instant absolution.
You were 14, who cares?
Mike's argument exposes the group's double standard. Charlie's actions weren't a split-second mistake, but rather a pattern of repeated cruelty. Yet because Charlie belongs to the group, the standards that were applied so confidently to the DJ suddenly become far more flexible.
When Mike redirects the game to Emma, she enters the playing field assuming the exact same rulebook as everyone else applies, having just watched the other three get laughed out of their sins. Emma drops the biggest truth bomb yet, explaining that she planned a school shooting when she was 15 years old.
Charlie's immediate reaction is complete disbelief. He laughs and tries to mitigate the blast. He leans in,
You're joking, you fantasize about it.
becoming visibly more fascinated as the details grow darker until they become too specific to ignore.
Emma goes on to explain how she became deaf in one ear, a quirky detail the film deliberately established early on when she playfully made Charlie reintroduce himself because she hadn't heard him the first time. Up until this moment, Charlie believed that she was born deaf. It isn't until the revelation that it was actually caused by a gun discharge during target practice that forces Charlie to finally confront the weight of what she's saying. Not only had Emma lied about the cause of her deafness, but she had actually gone into the woods for target practice. The camera holds tightly on Rachel's expression, allowing the suffocating tension to build up before she drops the bomb.
You know my cousin's in a wheelchair because of a shooting, right?
The game's central illusion that every confession can eventually be laughed away shatters. It isn't until the confession hits home with Rachel's personal life that Emma's actions become, in the group's eyes, completely unforgivable. The moment Emma tries to defend herself by bringing up her age, Rachel snaps with complete hypocrisy. Just minutes earlier, when Charlie admitted to tormenting a classmate so relentlessly that his family relocated, Mike immediately absolved him by pointing to his age, and Rachel sat there without making a peep. But when it comes to Emma, that excuse is thrown out of the window. They judge her as if she's describing something she did yesterday, refusing to open any room for forgiveness. Trapped between Rachel's rage, Mike's silent judgment, Charlie's complete inability to take a meaningful stance, and the immediate regret of ever admitting the truth upon realizing that the game's rules never applied equally to her, Emma's body physically rejects the suffocating hostility of the room as she vomits across the white tablecloth. It's a physical reflection of the destruction of the group's fragile social dynamic. The confession game is finally over.
Roger's speech begins as the most sincere moment in the film so far. The story about the blind farmer stumbling through the living room plays as a father's unguarded love for his daughter. That is exactly what makes the rest of the speech so unsettling, because Roger has no idea what he's actually describing. As he moves from childhood memories into Emma's teenage activism, the tone shifts without him noticing it. He recounts her passion for gun control, an arrest for egging Walmart employees over gun sales, and finally, jokes that his own rifle went missing around that same time. To Roger, these are just proud, slightly embarrassing parent stories. He has no way of knowing he's narrating, almost beat for beat, the exact sequence of events that led to his daughter's deafness and a planned school shooting. Then the DJ has a microphone malfunction that sounds eerily similar to a gunshot.
If Roger's speech hadn't already planted seeds of suspicion in those who knew Emma's secret by repeatedly drawing attention to her history with guns, blissfully unaware of the context that gave those childhood stories a far darker meaning, Rachel's maid of honor toast twists the knife even deeper. Eager to capitalize on the moment, she insists on giving her speech. Rachel uses the occasion to her advantage. Emma is left with no socially acceptable way to defend herself, as Rachel takes what should have been a heartfelt celebration and turns it into a passive-aggressive act of public humiliation. Rather than blatantly attacking Emma, Rachel weaponizes the language of a compliment by calling Emma layered and complex. She's secretly reminding everyone in the room that the woman standing before them has a hidden side they know nothing about. It's a character assassination disguised as admiration. She doesn't stop with Emma. She also shifts the focus of her judgment to include Charlie, implying that anyone capable of accepting Emma after her confession deserves the same suspicion. While Charlie approaches Emma's confession by asking whether he can personally continue to love someone despite a dark revelation, Rachel views Emma's confession through the lens of group morality, where some actions should permanently remove a person from their community, regardless of whether Charlie personally chooses to forgive her. From Rachel's perspective, Charlie's loyalty is no longer an act of love, but him endorsing the unforgivable. She continues by praising Charlie's open-mindedness before concluding that they're a happy, carefree couple. The sarcasm is unmistakable. The words carefree couple is an accusation that the two of them are capable of overlooking each other's moral failures. This speech was Rachel's declaration that anyone unwilling to exile Emma from their community deserves to stand beside her. Emma makes her escape from the table, but the paranoia is beginning to settle in. Outside the restroom, she overhears Misha whispering to someone in the hallway about a school shooter, and total panic sets in. Who else knew? And how did the secret spread beyond the group?
Were you just talking to someone?
Just now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who?
Susan?
Susan. Oh.
Emma questions Charlie, who shifts the blame by suggesting that Rachel must have been the one who told Misha, before quickly retreating the idea altogether, insisting they were probably talking about an entirely unrelated situation. His behavior becomes increasingly self-incriminating when Emma suggests they simply ask Misha directly, instead of owning up to what he did. He continues trying to divert the attention away from Misha, the one person capable of exposing everything he's been hiding. The harder he works to avoid speaking to Misha, the more obvious it becomes that he already knows exactly where the rumor came from.
The situation completely unravels when Emma drags Misha into the room. Before anyone else can get a word out, Misha blurts out that Charlie kissed her, initially thinking Emma might have already found out about their encounter. She then explains how it happened, tracing it back to their earlier conversation in which Charlie, emotionally overwhelmed by Emma's confession, couldn't decide how to morally process what she'd revealed. Charlie went behind her back and turned her story into a hypothetical scenario, asking Misha whether she could stay with her own partner if he had done something similar. Charlie outsourced the moral verdict to someone else to decide where he stood in his own relationship. Even as the confrontation reaches its boiling point, Charlie still can't stop micromanaging the narrative. When Misha explains that the hypothetical involved forgiving someone who did a school shooting, Charlie makes the correction that it was only planned. Even in the middle of betraying Emma by exposing details about her secret to Misha in the first place, he's simultaneously trying to protect the way her confession is understood. Morally torn, he can't fully commit to condemning her, yet he also can't fully commit to standing by her. So even in the middle of the collapse, he's still trying to protect how the story is told. Watching Charlie desperately argue over the wording, Misha begins to realize that the hypothetical was never hypothetical at all. Emma's past is officially unraveling in front of everyone, and the secret is no longer hers to control.
The three of them head into the dining hall, and Mike moves things along by announcing that Emma will say a few words to her new husband. She shakes her head, unable to do it, and Mike pivots without missing a beat, handing the floor to Charlie instead. Charlie stands, finishes off his wine, and it's immediately clear he's unraveling. Disheveled, unprepared, eyes on the floor, as he admits he'd forgotten the speech entirely. Roger's face falls the moment he says it, a small detail that says more about the room's expectations than anything Charlie said yet. Charlie recites what he'd clearly been building the whole film, but out of order and unfiltered, jumping from how they met straight into their sex life. With no sense of what belongs in a room full of family. The crowd gasps and begin to gossip, and Charlie responds by apologizing, telling Emma he's sorry for the level of stupidity he's subjected her to, demanding that they stop gossiping.
Can you just please, can you just stop gossiping? All right, it's just a wedding. She didn't do anything, okay? She didn't do anything.
Then, turning back to her directly, he delivers the line that's been building the whole film.
Emma, you're the love of my life. I can't understand why I would have done anything to hurt you, especially not with fucking Misha. Jesus fucking Christ,
What the fuck does that mean?
He says her name in an attempt to solve one problem, and accidentally opens another. Charlie tells Emma, even if she'd killed someone, it wouldn't change how he feels. It's the exact declaration the whole film has been circling, said out loud to a room that has no context for how to receive it. As Blake and Misha's argument gets louder, Charlie turns on them too, snapping for the two of them to stop. Blake doesn't take it. He gets up, crosses the room, and asks Charlie directly,
Did you sexually harass Misha?
What?
Yes or no?
I didn't harass her.
While everyone else is distracted by the chaos they've created, Emma quietly makes her escape, leaving the night of public humiliation behind without anyone even noticing she's gone. There is a dark irony in how this entire wedding collapse plays out. Throughout the film, Emma is framed as the dangerous, unhinged person that everyone needs to watch out for. Yet, when the night actually explodes, look at who's causing real damage. Charlie's own betrayal triggers the whole confrontation. Blake headbutts him hard enough to draw blood in front of the entire reception. The two people responsible for the night's actual violence and infidelity are the ones nobody's treating as dangerous. Meanwhile, the person everyone's been treating as a threat all night leaves quietly, having caused no one any harm at all. It's worth going back to where this all started. Though Rachel's initial reaction isn't unreasonable, she has a real personal stake in gun violence, and that's worth taking seriously on its own terms. What's harder to defend is what it becomes. She never asks whether Emma's changed. The confession itself is treated as the whole verdict, with no further evidence wanted. From here, nothing Emma does can move the needle. Her remorse reads as guilt, and her silence is treated as concealment. That's not accountability anymore. It's a permanent exile.
The whole film, we've watched Charlie and Rachel argue their philosophies, but neither of them is actually about Emma. They're about what Charlie needs to believe about himself, and what Rachel needs to believe about the people she lets close to her. Somewhere underneath both arguments is the one voice that never actually gets to finish its point.
Emma made her own argument first, before anyone turned the game on her. She's the one who said maybe they caught the DJ on her worst day. Maybe one moment doesn't get to define someone permanently. That was Emma's philosophy, minutes before the table applied it to everyone except her. After the total destruction of their wedding, the film lands in the quiet, dimly lit refuge of Andy's Diner. It's a bittersweet callback to an earlier conversation where Emma and Charlie joked about skipping the expensive reception dinner for late-night hamburgers in their wedding clothes. But they aren't arriving here in glamour like they previously thought they would. Charlie is covered in dried blood. His tux is ruined. Emma walks in with an oversized puffer jacket thrown over her wedding dress. This is the collapse of Charlie's carefully controlled narrative. All film, he's explained away every uncomfortable situation. Now there's nothing left to explain, intellectualize, or perform. Charlie's failures got exposed too. The kiss, the breakdown, the blood on his face in front of both families, but the film treats his as a bad night. Emma's confession isn't treated as a bad moment. It's treated as a permanent fact about who she is. It's only once Charlie has nothing left to manage that they're able to sit across from each other as equals for the first time. What follows replays a moment from earlier in the film, where after an argument over Charlie's struggle to accept Emma's confession, they ease the tension by pretending to meet for the first time. It's two people finding their way back to each other through humor, having let far too many other people into a relationship that was never theirs to begin with. It acknowledges that the worst thing a person has ever done isn't necessarily the totality of who they are. As they reach across the table to shake hands and reintroduce themselves, the message is clear. Love isn't defined by a performative wedding ceremony or by outsiders who are convinced that they're qualified to judge everyone else. Love exists in the aftermath of failure, where two people can be fully aware of each other's deepest flaws and choose to sit together anyway.